The World Cup of Bad Games.
Generation 4 Tournament.
Alright everybody, welcome back to the Generation 4 tournament, and this here is part 2. In this video I'm going to be going over groups E through H. If you need an explanation of the criteria used for this tournament, please go ahead and watch part 1 of the Generation 4 tournament. So let's begin. Group E consists of Back to the Future, Burning Fight, Alien Gate, and the Addams Family. Group F consists of Bebe's Kids, Ballistics, Wild Woody, and Slam City. Group G has Rise of the Robots, Deep Blue, Mutant Rampage, and Supreme Warrior. Group H consists of Race Driving, Fight Fever, Sewer Shark, and Legion. So first, let's take a look at Group E. Back to the Future 3 is a game that I had some hope for when it came out. And the graphics are nice, sure, on the first level. Too bad the difficulty on this game is ramped up to the level of almost impossible. If you can get to stage 2 without throwing a fit, then you have achieved something truly remarkable. Burning Fight is an early Neo Geo title. It has very crude and simple mechanics for a beat 'em up, but the graphics are very colorful and vibrant, I'll give it that. Alien Gate feels like a demo of an unfinished game, and maybe it is, but you know what? They released it anyway. You command a ship on an overhead shooter. I wish I could say more, but the game has very little to offer. The Addams Family is an odd one because you don't play as any of the family members, but as Tully, the antagonist of the 1991 movie. Other than some cutscenes and voiceovers, don't expect too much from this one in terms of gameplay. Over at Group F, we got Bebe's Kids, which was a game developed by, is that Radical Entertainment? Wait, is that the same people who made the Simpsons Hit and Run game? Wow, talk about a turnaround. I could have sworn this game was developed by the devil himself. Ballistics is like a mix between hockey, pong, and Alien Crush. It sounds great on paper or when you hear somebody talking about it, but then you play it and you realize that you're better off fantasizing about what could have been versus what we got. Wild Woody is obnoxious. Every animal or inanimate object mascot needed not only to be brought to life, but they needed attitude in the early and mid 90s. This one is about a pencil brought to life. Yes, a pencil. Slam City was another attempt to bring the experience straight to your living room, this time with basketball. You know, I've seen more gameplay options in the back of a Count Chocula box. Group G has Rise of the Robots, which is a game that is nice to look at, sure, but so as long as you are a spectator and not the player, this game will do just fine. Deep Blue was one of the early TurboGrafx titles that was dropped to Turbo owners as a means to entice gamers towards the new console in the market that was not made by Sega or Nintendo. It's an underwater-based shooter. Not many of those out there, so this one gets some points for being unique. Mutant Rampage is a mediocre beat-em-up on the CDI, but is it one of the worst on the console? Yet for some reason, it keeps popping up on the worst of list over and over again on different websites and forums. But you know what? It doesn't look that bad to me. It actually looks pretty good, and I've seen worse on the CDI. Much worse. Supreme Warrior tries to do for the one-on-one fighting genre what Slam City did for basketball. And we know what Slam City did for basketball. The result? It's the same here. Now, race driving on the Super NES could have been much more. The system had Mode 7. Could the new graphical capabilities of the Super Nintendo bring the arcade experience home? Well, let's just say the anticipation was there. The execution was totally missing. Fight Fever is a game from Viacom that was released in 1994, 4 years into the life of the Neo Geo. This, on the same year, King of Fighters 94 and Samurai Shodown 2 came out, and yet we get a title that looks like a year one product. FMV was the big thing back then. Video games that looked like movies was the next technological step in gaming. Sewer Shark was promoted big on the Sega CD, and you know what? It paid off, as it became the best-selling title on that console add-on. Legion is the only Japanese title on this tournament. The side-scrolling shooter came out at a time that shooters were still experiencing a high in the industry. This one had a unique feature of using its capabilities to bring you a narrating voiceover as you start each level. That's odd, and that's the best way I can put it. So, for the first match, it's going to be Group E winner versus runner-up in Group F.
Alien Gate versus Baby's Kids.
Alien Gate has got to be one of the most basic and uninspiring lazy attempts at creating an overhead space shooter. So you're basically stuck on the same looking screen over and over again, and the only thing that changes is the projectiles that are thrown down at you. Now, this is the type of game that I would expect to find if I was playing an Action 52 on the CDI. Only thing is, there is no such thing. Now, what can I say about Bebe's Kids? It was a game based off a cartoon movie that was based off a comedy skit by the late great Robin Harris. The game was a lazy attempt as a cash grab for an animated movie. But that's basically it. They knew kids would go watch it and maybe like it, and kids don't really care too much about horrible gameplay, horrible controls. Kids don't know any better. I could go on, but it's Bebe's Kids. So you got one game that's a very lazy programming attempt at an overhead shooter, and the other, it's Bebe's Kids. Yeah, Bebe's Kids advances. Over on the next bracket, we got
Supreme Warrior versus Legion.
Supreme Warrior is a game that doesn't really require you to have the 32X and the Sega CD, but if you somehow happen to have both for some reason, you could buy the 32X version, which had more colors, I guess. And the only reason that the controls are that bad, and they are bad, is because the dialogue and the choreography and the action is so intense and so amazing on its own that you don't need controls. Why? You just sit back and enjoy this freaking horrible mess of a game. I can't do this anymore. Legion is a very mediocre side-scrolling space shooter on the TurboGrafx CD. The graphics, they're not that bad actually. That's pretty much it. That's where all my compliments for this game end. The gameplay is extremely fast-paced. Only your ship moves very slow and you won't have time to move out of the way of the kamikaze-like enemies, much less their shots. Again, it's not a horrible game overall, but it's extremely frustrating and very bland to the point that you might not want to play it past stage 2. So, Supreme Warrior advances. So for this quarterfinal match, we get
Bebe's Kids versus Supreme Warrior.
Okay, give me a second here. I'm trying to beat the first stage. Damn it, I can't seem to get past the first stage without the timer running out. So I keep dying because either I'm trying to hurry and the enemies kill me, or time just keeps running out. I can't get past stage 1. This game is just horrible. You know what? I'm not even going to keep trying. In Supreme Warrior, I feel like I'm starting to get the hang of it when all of a sudden the enemy just beats the living crap out of me, and the next thing you know, I have to start all over again. But there's a little sense of gameplay here, some amusement out of knowing that more cheesy choreographed fights and dialogue are just waiting for me to uncover once I get past this first guy which keeps killing me. Oh man, I can honestly say that I'm going to return to this one at some point in time in the future, even though it is horrible. However, I am never ever playing Bebe's Kids again. Bebe's Kid advances. So we are finally down to the semi-final match on the left side of the bracket.
Laser Lords versus Bebe's Kids.
You know what? I refuse to talk about this game anymore. I don't want to talk about Bebe's Kids anymore. I hate this game. I truly hate it. The monster that used to live under my bed wouldn't want to play this game. So it easily advances to the finals. On the right side of the bracket, we have the first knockout match from Group F winner and Group E runner-up.
Slam City versus Back to the Future Part 3.
Slam City was an attempt to bring sporting games to the first-person perspective and give it a sense of grit and street-like feel to games like basketball. You know, the thing is that if you want to get that realistic and you want to play one-on-one versus somebody else, then you get a basketball or a football or whatever the sport is of your preference, and you go outside and you call some of your friends and you play the sport. Are you going to tell me that because on the box it says that I'm going to be playing against Scottie Pippen, that I feel like I'm going to be playing against Scottie Pippen? Are you freaking kidding me? You know what? Grab NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Hell, pick up Double Dribble on the Nintendo. Anything is better than this piece of crap. I wish I could go into lots of details regarding the Back to the Future game. I loved the movies and I had high hopes for this one when it came out. And then I played it. there goes that idea. And I could not for the life of me get past the first level. I am sure that if I played it over and over and over again until I memorized every single object that is thrown at me, I could probably beat the level. But you know what? I don't want to because it's not fun. There is no enjoyment when playing this game. There is no good reason to come back to this game over and over again and try to play it, much less beat it. Now, these two games are so evenly matched in the crappiness that they bring to the table that you have to take a micron microscope and look under the lens to determine who is the winner. That's how close it is. However, Slam City edges Back to the Future by a micrometer. On the next knockout match, it is
Race Driving versus Deep Blue.
Race Driving was a somewhat technological leap when it came out in the arcade. It was cool. It was a fully 3D polygon-based driving game. The arcade even had the cool feedback steering wheel, the keys and the pedals to simulate like you were actually driving a real car. And it was really awesome. And yes, the gameplay was slow, but you know what? It was the immersive cabinet that sold it. There is no immersive cabinet in your house. It's just you, the TV, and your Super Nintendo. And hopefully, there aren't any sharp objects near you while you play this game, because you're going to want to stab yourself in the eyes when you begin to play the game. It runs at, I don't know, 1 frame a second, and I'm being generous here. Deep Blue is a fish-themed based side-scrolling shooter. Now, when I first saw the title, I thought it was going to be like a Darius game. Oh, what a disappointment. The gameplay is slow. The levels are so bland with little to no details whatsoever. The only slight compliment that I can give it is that it has parallax scrolling. And I know, I'm reaching here. The marketing team in charge of promoting the TurboGrafx in the US really were stupid and had no idea what games should have been released here. Deep Blue should not have. Period. Now, one thing they did do right though, they didn't put race driving on the TurboGrafx. I guess they had a little bit of compassion for us TurboGrafx owners. Race driving advances. So the quarterfinal match is set between
Slam City versus Race Driving.
Okay, I'm not sure what is happening in the scene here, but either he just figured out what type of film footage and game he's a part of, or they actually recorded him after he actually bought a copy of Slam City and saw his own performance in it. The acting is way over the top, so while the gameplay is almost non-existent, it is somewhat fun to watch the clips and laugh at it all. Yeah, they are funny. Now, no matter how much you play race driving, there is no laughter, there are no smiles. Actually, it's the other way. The more you play it, the less likely you will smile for the rest of the day, or maybe even the week. Race driving advances to the semifinal.
Dark Castle versus Race Driving.
Both these games are an abomination to the gaming lexicon, with almost no redeeming values whatsoever. I said it before, if the technology isn't there to port over an arcade game properly, with at least some playable factor, do not port it. Had Tengen waited 1 more year, they might have used the FX1 chip to speed up the game overall, making it playable. Dark Castle has no fix. You can't add any chip or chipset to make this game any better. With that said, Dark Castle advances. And so the final match for the 4th generation is set.
Dark Castle versus Baby's Kids.
2 more worthy titles could not have been more appropriate for the final. On one side, the vomit-inducing Dark Castle, and on the other side, the stressful and extremely infuriating Baby's Kids. I hate both games. I truly hate both games, but one of them has to take the title. And you know what? Dark Castle wins the 4th generation tournament. Baby's Kids comes in 2nd, and Race Driving is 3rd. So, after all this, I hope you learn a valuable lesson. Stay away from all these titles, all of them. All of them, they all suck, they're bad. But the tournament must continue. The Generation 5 tournament will be out next month, and you'll want to check this one out. Lots of games that are less known, but still shitty in the end, trust me. See you all in a week or so when my History of Beat-em-Ups Hack and Slash edition begins. A trip down memory lane commences. Till then, keep watching, keep gaming, and as always, take care of yourselves.
$5, go buy some game.